Everyone. Well, I should have probably included at least one slide about Kinsella Gate and all of the associated fallout in the last video, so I apologize for not including it. But I'm doing a whole video on it right now, so it kind of evens out. And I did a video on it last night, but I still should have included one clip. And I'll tell you which clip I should have included after watching them through to do this video. So here we go. Here is Mr. Bernier, and this is a Maxime Bernier Twitter roundup, 1 day left before election, with a fairly big scandal being exposed by the Globe and Mail. And the context of this scandal being exposed is really strange. One, last week, Warren Kinsella teased a big damaging Justin Trudeau story that never materialized except in the Buffalo Chronicle and some other associated U.S. and other places. So, and still no proof, still nothing that has been borne out that I've seen. So I've just read some articles that people say trust our sources. So, okay, trust your sources if you want. So Warren Kinsella teases, the article never happens, and then all of a sudden, and also Warren Kinsella was hired openly by the Greens, and the backlash because of that required the Greens to get rid of him as soon as possible, like 3 or 4 days after he was confirmed as being hired, and that was like early July. He was done by the end of July with the Green Party, but he was employed. Well, Andrew Scheer is not confirming or denying, but he was employed by the Conservative Party, according to the Globe and Mail story, sourced by unknown sources, but they say, no, we've got documentation for this, so who knows? I hope they release it, but I'm not in charge of their news media room, right? So they've got Warren Kinsella hired by the Conservatives prior to working for the Greens, and Warren Kinsella has a long history with the Liberals. So interesting here, and Mr. Bernier says, quote, refusing to answer simple questions and making up rules to justify it, just like Trudeau. And I played this clip yesterday, but this is what rules from Katie, CBC Katie.
What is the rule that you have?
Well, here we go.
What is the rule that you have here that you can't say which contractors you're working with?
We just don't comment on the contracts that we may or may not have.
Is it a rule you just made up?
We just don't make comments on contracts that we may or may not have or vendors that we may.
And I'm not going to, it's quiet anyway because one side isn't working for some reason. Okay, here's Mr. Bernier's second tweet and to retweet, and it says, People's Party of Canada leader Maxime Bernier has filed a complaint to the Commission of Canada Elections to get to the bottom of what he calls a secret smear campaign waged against him. Yeah, this is a big story. It's a big story. Here is Mr. Bernier tweeting out, is it Scheer's attack dog, Warren Kinsella, who orchestrated finding a Rhinoceros Party candidate named Maxime Bernier in Beauce to sow confusion and steal votes from me? Because that's happening. Here's another tweet. The third phase, to run July 1st to be determined, is what TBD means, was called the full steam ahead phase, where the team would push Maxime Bernier and the PPC off their message, forcing them instead to defend instances of hate speech and sympathy for racism. Despicable. And is that what you want in your democracy? Is that how you want conservatives or liberals to spend your donations to the party? Paying for smear campaigns and spin campaigns that push political parties off their messaging and force them to defend fake instances, made up instances of racism and hate? The rise of this garbage coincides very closely with the rise of Justin Trudeau and the identity politics trash that has been overtaking our country for the last few years. It is despicable, and I agree with Mr. Bernier. Unbelievable. Here's the next one. The Conservatives could not compete with the People's Party of Canada on policies and leadership, so instead Scheer paid this professional mudslinger to, quote, seek and destroy us with lies. Scheer has no integrity. Like Trudeau, he will do anything to gain power. And yeah, I think that's true. And the link to the CBC article, which I covered in depth yesterday. Mr. Bernier continues, and this is 9:23 a.m. yesterday. He says, Scheer at the debate, PPC supporters come from, quote, the darkest parts of Twitter. I mean, it is kind of dark in here. It's my garage, but I've got a light on, and there's 2 monitors, and I've got some studio lights, so it's, it feels warm and cozy. Okay, back to the tweet. Quote, he said after paying his hired mudslinger Kinsella to fabricate this story and manipulate the media. Scheer and Trudeau practice the same kind of dirty politics. And that's the point I was making earlier in my little diatribe. Like, the Liberals do this, but they do it to your face, and they exacerbate the identity politics, and they exacerbate the division within the country, right? You're no longer a Canadian, you're a fill in the blank Canadian, right? LGBTQ Canadian, or a whatever, it doesn't matter, fill in the blank. Back to this, CTV News, and it's retweeted by Mr. Bernier. He says, PC leader Maxime Bernier called the Conservative Party morally and intellectually corrupt as he responded to a report that the Tories hired a consulting firm to discredit him. Read more here. And this was the clip that I should have shown in the other video, so I apologize. This is the one I would have chosen. Here's Mr. Bernier addressing everything and being succinct about it. Here we go.
Andrew Scheer today refused to confirm or deny this news, saying he could not disclose the Conservative Party contracts with outside firms. Like Justin Trudeau, during the SNC-Lavalin scandal, Mr. Scheer invents reason for refusing to answer questions and tell the truth. This story shows how corrupt our old parties are. This is the kind of dirty politics that fuels Canadians' cynicism about politics. Andrew Scheer does not deserve the confidence of Canadians this Monday, not more than Justin Trudeau. He defends no clear conservative principle. In fact, we saw today that he has no principle at all. Like Justin Trudeau, Andrew Scheer is ready to say and do anything to gain power. He is ready to steal the election with lies and manipulations. I left the Conservative Party of Canada after realizing that it had been morally and intellectually corrupt. Who can now doubt it?
And yeah, really, who can now doubt it? The evidence is clear as day. They're hiring mudslingers to push people off their message because they can't beat the People's Party on policies, because they don't have any policies that are different than Justin Trudeau. Mr. Bernier continues on October 19th, says, did my Conservative opponent in Beauce, Richard Lehoux, know about this mudslinging campaign paid by his leader? Does he approve? Is this the type of politics that he wants for Beauce? Here's Trudeau, and I played this clip yesterday, so I'm not going to play it again because Twitter is notoriously quiet on my platform here. And Mr. Bernier says, liar, hypocrite, you're as bad as Trudeau. Hashtag LibConCorruption. And here's the second question from Andrew Scheer that he doesn't answer. Okay, I'll play them both. Might as well. Here we go.
Comments that our party may or may not have.
Kinsella was apparently hired to do your party's dirty work in attacking Maxime Bernier with the condition that the contract wouldn't be traced back to the Conservatives. How do you think the public will perceive this?
We don't make comments on vendors that we may or may not have engaged with.
So to that end, did your party hire Mr. Kinsella to attack the Liberals?
As I said, we don't make comments on vendors that our party may or may not have engaged with.
Yes or no, did you hire Mr. Kinsella?
As a rule, we never make comments on vendors that we may or may not have.
Don't you love that when they just keep repeating the same answer over and over? It's wonderful. Here he is again doing exactly the same thing.
What is the rule that you have here that you can't?
Oh, I'm not going to play it. It's too quiet. It's not worth it. Anyway, Mr. Bernier says, refusing to answer simple questions and making up rules to justify it, just like Trudeau. And that's true. Here is Mr. Bernier again, and he says, Scheer, poor Maxime thinks he can win with principles and good policies. LOL. Kinsella will show him how a real dirty campaign is run. I have decades of experience doing it with Liberals. Deal? Scheer, check is in the mail, Warren. And that's a picture of Andrew Scheer and Warren Kinsella, presumably. Here is Mr. Scheer saying, was Andrew Scheer's attack dog, Warren Kinsella, responsible for staging this pseudo-scandal with forged emails? RCMP is still investigating. I don't know. I don't know if he was. Mr. Bernier asks again, is it Scheer? Oh, and I already brought this one up, but I'll say it again. Is it Scheer's attack dog, Warren Kinsella, who orchestrated finding a Rhinoceros Party candidate named Maxime Bernier in Beauce to sow confusion and steal votes from me? And yeah, I mean, in a tight election, even if a couple hundred people get that wrong for whatever reason, it's not appropriate. It's not appropriate to allow purposeful confusion like that. I'd be interested to see what motivated the Rhinoceros Party Maxime Bernier to run for Beauce. Very interested. Very interested indeed. Well, thank you for watching, everybody. I think these are big scandals. I think it's interesting, the timing of this. I think it's interesting, the context of this. And I think this is one of the biggest stories in Canadian politics, right? I think really this is the day before the election. And I mean, the amount of money being used to smear the campaign, other parties, to smear them in a way that is designed to push them off their message. I mean, not that it should be illegal, but do you want to support a party that engages in those practices instead of being focused on policies that will resonate with people? And right? It just seems off to me. It just seems really strange that that's what our politics has been reduced to. And I mean, I know there are people out there who have an argument for me on their tongue, right? Like, I get it. I understand there's another side to it, right? Like, that's part of the game. They should be allowed to game it the way the politics are allowed to be gamed, right? Like, you can pay somebody to smear somebody online. Sure, there's no rules against that. There's no laws against that. Trudeau wants to change that, but that's part of the game. But it's dirty, and everyone agrees that it's dirty politics. So I'm not necessarily looking for a legal recourse, although that might be part of it, because you can't slander somebody, right? You can't libel somebody. That's not allowed. So within the context of our current legal system, I think maybe it warrants being looked at, but I'm no lawyer, so I don't know. But on the one side, is it good coaching, good football coaching? If you control the clock, if you're 3 yards from the touchdown line, you don't throw it, you run that ball, right? You control the clock and you make sure the other team doesn't get the ball, and you just walk it into the end zone, or you control it until they can't score again. Is that good coaching? Is that exploiting the rules? Is that fair? Who knows? My point is, I think this is a big story, and I think Canadians expect more from their government. I think Canadians expect their government to come with ideas rather than smear campaigns. I think the Canadians expect their government to show up and to show up at debates, to defend their ideas and say, these are the things that we think, because we think it's important that you know. Because that's what I think is important to the constituents. And I think that's what Mr. Bernier thinks is important to the constituents, which is why I think this is a big story, because I think Canadians care. But maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe most Canadians won't care. Maybe most Canadians will think it's water under the bridge, just like blackface and SNC Lavalin and firing the Attorney General and shoehorning in a deferred prosecution agreement into the 2018 budget, but completely ignoring the money laundering that's inflating our real estate market, completely ignoring the foreign buyers and the drugs, the fentanyl flowing into our country. I don't know how anybody can overlook these things. I don't know how anybody can think they're minor deals. But apparently they are. So I see this story and I think this is a big story. But so are all of the ones I just listed. And they all happened relatively recently. If you look at the polls, well, but thankfully, I've done lots of videos about why the polls are pretty much garbage. So we only have one more sleep, everyone. Get out and vote tomorrow. It's really important. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.